Okay, did the elderly love to be read to? Raymie wasn't sure. Old Miss Borowski was elderly and was and what she always wanted Raymie to do was to clip her toenails. How was your first baton twirling lesson? Asked Miss Sylvester. It was interesting, said Raymie. An image of Louisiana Elefante falling to her knees flashed through her head. This image was followed by one of Beverly Topinski and her mother fighting over the baton in a cloud of gravel dust. Isn't it exciting to be learning something new? Said Miss Sylvester. Yes, said Raymie. How's your mother doing, dear? Said Miss Sylvester. She's sitting on the couch in the sunroom right now. She does that a lot. Mostly, that's what she does. She doesn't really do anything else. She just sits there. So this is what your question 1 is going to be about. So what can you infer about how Raymie's mother is feeling? So use evidence and prior knowledge to answer this question. What can you infer about Raymie's mother, how Raymie's mother is feeling? So I'm going to put it in also the Canvas assignment, okay, for you to see question 1. So you can reread this part. She's sitting on the couch in the sunroom right now. She does that a lot. Mostly, that's what she does. She doesn't really do anything else. She just sits there. What can you infer about how Raymie's mother is feeling? Well, said Miss Sylvester, there was a long pause. It will be fine. You'll see. We all do what we can do. Okay, said Raymie. Louisiana's words floated through her head. I'm too terrified to go on. Raymie didn't say the words out loud, but she felt them pass through her, and Miss Sylvester's kind bird-voiced Miss Sylvester must have felt them too, because she said, You just select a suitable book for sharing, dear, and then go down to the Golden Glen. They will be very glad to see you there. You just do what you can do. Okay? Everything will be fine. It would all work out right in the end. So chapter 12. It wasn't until Raymie hung up the phone that she wondered what Miss Sylvester meant by a suitable book. She walked into the living room and stood on the yellow shag carpet and stared at the bookcase. All the books were brown and serious. They were her father's books. What if he came back home and one was missing? She felt like maybe it would be best to leave them alone. Raymie went into her room. The shelves over her bed held rocks and seashells and stuffed animals and books. The borrowers. No, it was too unlikely. No normal adult would believe in tiny people who lived under the floorboards. Paddington Bear? Something about the book seemed too bright and silly for the seriousness of a nursing home. Little House in the Big Woods? A really old person had probably lived through all that history and wouldn't want to hear about it again. And then Raymie saw A Bright and Shining Path, the life of Florence Nightingale. This was a book that Edward Option had given her on the last day of school. Mr. Option was the school librarian. He was very skinny and extremely tall. He had to duck his head to enter and exit the George Mason Willamette Elementary School library. Mr. Option looked too young and uncertain to be a librarian. Also, his ties were too wide, and they were all painted with strange and lonely pictures of deserted beaches, haunted-looking forest, or UFOs. Sometimes, when he held up a book, Mr. Option hands shook with nervousness, or maybe it was excitement. In any case, on the last day of school, Edward Option had said to Raymie, You're such a good reader, Raymie Clark, that I wonder if you might be interested in diversifying. I have here a non-fiction book that you might enjoy. Okay, said Raymie. Even though she had absolutely no interest in non-fiction, she liked stories. Mr. Option held up A Bright and Shining Path, the life of Florence Nightingale. So on this paragraph, just be thinking about this question. What can you infer that the book A Bright and Shining Path, the life of Florence Nightingale could be about? Okay, so what can you infer using evidence about what I'm going to read and your prior knowledge? What might this book be about? On the cover, there were dozens of soldiers stretched out on their backs on what looked like a battlefield, and a lady was walking in between the soldiers and carrying a lamp over her head, and the men were holding their hands out to her, begging her for something. There was no bright and shining path anywhere in sight. It looked like a horrible, depressing book. So, what do you think? What can you infer that the book A Bright and Shining Path, The Life of Florence Nightingale, be about? What could it be about? That's question 2 that you're going to answer in Canvas. Maybe, said Mr. Option, you could read this over the summer, and then we could talk about it together when school begins. Okay, said Raymie again, but she only agreed because she liked Mr. Option so much, and because he was so tall and lonely and hopeful. She had taken the Florence Nightingale book from him and brought it home and put it on her shelf. A few days later, her father had run away with Leanne Dickerson, and Raymie forgot all about Edward Option and his strange ties in his nonfiction book. But maybe, someday, at the Golden Glen Nursing Home, somebody at the Golden Glen Nursing Home would want to hear about the life of Florence Nightingale and her shining path. Maybe it was exactly what Miss Sylvester meant by a suitable book. Maybe everything would work out right in the end.